So in the last lecture we have seen the thread states and how the thread states will be operated, and how a thread will change from one state to another state. What are the different functions that are to be called upon a thread so that the state transition takes place. So these kind of things we have seen in the last lecture. Today we are moving into the programming aspects of multi-threading. So before moving on to the programming aspects, let will recall the important points, and I have made some important points here. You must remember these points for doing this programming, this multi-threaded programming in Java. So this the way of remembering these points is also very important. The reason is, if you can remember in sequence, it will be helpful for you in the campus placements and while attempting the competitive examinations. At the same time, the same thing is also important for our current course. Move on to the today's lecture. Thread is a small program that executes under process memory. So this is a small program. Thread is a small program that executes under process memory. That means whatever the process address space is there, within that particular process address space, a thread will execute. And a process may consisting of multiple threads. If a process don't have any thread, then it is said to be single thread of control. Second point is, threads are Java's way of making a single JVM that will look like multiple JVMs. That means it will create an illusion that Java's virtual machine will act as multiple virtual machines. So this is an illusion that will be created. So one can choose either single threaded or multi-threaded programming. So single threaded means you don't need to write any threads. Whatever the main method you write, that will act as the single thread of control. But the program will start from the main method, and once you can also create multiple threads which will run simultaneously in these threads. So once the threads are completed, then the main method will be completed. That means unless until all the child threads, all the threads were completed, complete their task or complete their execution, main thread cannot execute. So this is what is called multi-threaded programming. But in case of single-threaded programming, that there will not be any child threads available. Only main thread will be available, which is also got to be single thread of control. So that means a single-threaded program has one entry point and one exit point, because it will directly start from the main method, and some statements whatever there in the main method will be executed, and the exit will take place. But in case of multi-threaded programming, first there will be a main entry point, that is from main method, then followed by multiple entry and exit points. That means any thread under the main method may start and may exit. So in such a way, there will be multiple entry and multiple exit points. Once all the exits, once all the threads are exited, then the main method will be exited. Next is Java's thread support present in these three ways. One is java.lang.thread class. Next is java.object class. Another is Java virtual machine. So the threading can be implemented in two ways basically. One is by extending thread class. Another is by implementing runnable interface. So these are the two ways that the Java multi-threading will be implemented. Next, whether you extend the Java thread class or implement the runnable interface, you must override a function called public void run. So that is reason in Java lang.runnable interface, it consisting of only one method, which is called public void run. And one more thing is why two implementation facilities. That means once you extend Java thread class, that is java.lang.thread class, then you cannot extend any other class, because Java supports single and multi-level inheritance. So it won't support the multiple inheritance. So that reason another kind of implementation was provided, that is implementing Java runnable interface. So either you extend Java thread class or implement runnable interface, you must override a function called public void run. What is this public void run? Public void run is the function in which the piece of code that must be executed under thread should be written. Next is that is the piece of code to run as thread should be enclosed in which method? Public void run method. So whenever you say run, whenever this run method was overwritten, then this particular run will be called when the thread scheduler is available. So a thread is eligible to run when start method is called. So that means any thread has to start. You have to call the start function on the thread. When you call the start function on thread, then it will wait for the CPU scheduler or thread scheduler. Once the thread scheduler picks up any thread, then it will go into the running state. That what we have seen in the last lecture. So just like as shown in this diagram. So whenever you say thread object dot start, then it will be in the ready state. When the thread scheduler is ready, when thread scheduler is available, then it will be moved to the running state. So the same thing was mentioned in the 11th point. That is calling start method does not guarantee running. However, it waits for thread scheduler to execute. So it will always wait for the thread scheduler. It means here the thread will always wait for the thread scheduler to execute. A thread can execute its own run method or run method of some other threads. So a thread can execute its own run method or a run method of other threads. So run method in the sense the piece of code that should run as a thread should be enclosed in the run method. Okay. That means a thread can execute its own thread control, or it may also call other threads thread control or thread statements. Okay. So that means recall the electrician example. Electrical assistant, that assistant of the electrician may do his own work. At the same time, he may also do his colleague's work also, just like that. So a thread can execute its own run method or run method of some other threads. Next is when a thread finishes its execution, then we cannot restart that particular thread. That means it will go into the dead state. A dead thread cannot be restarted by calling start or run. Cannot call any other method on a dead thread. So these two things one must remember. So once the thread is ended, you cannot call anything. Next is every thread has a priority range which will range from 1 to 10. So by default each thread priority is 5. This is called normal priority. Priority of a thread can be set using the function in the thread class via set priority function, and can observe the priority of a thread using get priority. So if you say a thread object dot set priority, you can set the priority between the range 1 to 10. 1 means minimum priority, 10 means maximum priority. Normal priority is 5. Okay. So in order to set these priorities, there is a static constants available in the thread class, which are min underscore priority, which represents 1, norm underscore priority, which represents 5, max underscore priority, which represents 10. So basically Java assigns to each thread a priority that determines how that thread should be treated with respect to other threads. So recall the electrician example. In that one assistant may be working with that electrician from past 10 years. Another second electrician may be there who is working from 5 years. So obviously the one who is working from a long time will be given the higher priority, and the one who are with the less experience will be given the lower priority. So just like that, this particular thread in Java which assigns the thread priority, that especially to determine how that particular thread should be treated with respect to other threads. So this is the way this particular thread will be priorities will be useful, and in many other contexts also these priorities are useful. We'll see one by one. So basically a thread's priority is used to decide when to switch from one running thread to another running thread. This is called context switching. So as we have seen the multi-programming, multitasking, the context switching kind of aspect. That is multitasking, which is done at the thread level, is said to be multi-threading. So in here, on what basis the thread scheduler should shift from one thread to other thread? It is completely depending upon the setting of the thread priorities. So these thread priorities will decide when to switch from one running thread to another running thread. So because of this priorities only, various thread states are states are available. Basically, when this particular context switching takes place, this context switching will take place in the following situations. One is, make note of this: a thread can voluntarily relinquish its control. That means a thread can voluntarily relinquish its control in the sense a running thread can itself, that means on willingly he can give up the control and he will go into the any of the intermediate state, just like an electrician and his assistants. His assistant may be somewhat vexed with the work what he is doing, and he may say that, okay, I don't want to do anything. So that means he is voluntarily relinquishing its. So this is the way a thread can also voluntarily relinquish its control. This is actually done by explicitly calling yielding or sleeping or blocking, this kind of functions. When these particular functions were called on the thread, then they may go for voluntarily relinquishing its control. So in these scenarios, all other threads are examined, and the higher priority thread that is ready to run is given to the CPU. That means when these particular functions were called, what will happen? It will be going into the ready state. When they go for ready state, what will happen? In the ready state, there may be some other threads waiting to execute, that is waiting to shift to running state. So the thread scheduler may pick up a higher priority thread that is ready to run will be given to the CPU, so for the execution. This is the way useful. Next one is second advantage is a thread can be preempted by a higher priority thread. That means a lower priority thread that does not yield the processor is simply preempted, no matter what it is doing, by a higher priority thread. Basically, as soon as the higher priority thread wants to run, it will run. This is called preemptive multitasking. That means here recall the same electrician example. Under the electrician, there are two assistants. One is with a higher experience, another is lower experience. A lower experienced person is doing some work, and the higher experienced person is looking his work, and he found that he is doing the work in some wrong way. Then he may order that, okay, just you go out, I will do this particular task because you are not doing correctly. So thereby what is the scenario over here? Here the assistant with a higher experience is having the higher priority, and the person with the lower experience is having the lower priority. When the lower priority thread is executing, or when the lower experience assistant is working, the higher priority thread can order that, okay, just you voluntarily relinquish its control, so I will do this particular work. So in the same way, a higher priority thread can relinquish the control of the lower priority thread. So this is the way how the preemptive multitasking takes place. Then what is the case if whatever the threads available in the running state are having the equal priority? So in case of two or more threads with the same priority are competing for the CPU cycles, the situation is somewhat complicated. So here, how the CPU will then, or the scheduler will decide which thread to be considered. This is a question. There is no particular answer for this. The reason is it depends upon the operating system what it will do. For example, operating system like 98 Windows 98, threads of equal priority are time sliced automatically in round robin fashion. That means when equal priority threads are there, it will use round robin scheduling. So that means some time slot will be allotted. Within the time slot, that first thread will be executed, then the second thread will be considered, and the same time period it will execute. Like that, in a round robin fashion it will do. For other type of operating systems such as Solaris, then threads of the equal priority must voluntarily yield control to their peers. So if they don't want to do this, then other threads will not run and it will go into a stuck up situation. So this kind of things, this kind of things will be especially this thread priorities, equal thread priority execution, completely depending upon the operating system. That is the reason in the last lecture, while ending the lecture, I told you one concept called aging. It is of reducing or increasing the priority of the threads or processes, so that this kind of stuck up situation, or we can say starvation or deadlock kind of situation, we can be avoided. I hope by this time you come to know the importance of the thread priorities and how the thread priorities will decide the program execution. Next we will observe the program, how to write the program. The following class shows the implementing threading by extending the thread class. We have seen already we can implement the threading in two ways, by extending the thread class or by implementing the runnable interface. So first we will see how to extend the thread class and to perform the threading. So here the first class that I am writing is class counter thread 1 extends thread. So here I am writing a constructor public counter thread 1. So the code in the run method will be executed when this thread is started. That means here either it is by extending the thread class or by implementing the runnable interface, java.lang.runnable interface or whatever it may be. So you must override a function called public void run. The piece of code that should be written, that should run in the thread should be written in this particular public void run. So here public void run consisting of a for loop which is especially written for incrementing count from 0 to 10. So here system.out.println counter t1, that is thread 1 counting. So it will print the values of the for loop, that is for I is equal to 0 to I less than 10. Here I have placed a try catch block and in which I have called a function called sleep. So recall the thread states that we have discussed in the last lecture. Sleep from when this particular thread is started, obviously when the thread scheduler is ready, it will go into the running state. From running state, upon calling sleep function, you will go into the sleep state. Then what will happen? It will go into the ready state. Then if the thread scheduler is ready, is available, then the thread will go for running state. So when the sleep function is called, what it will do, it will sleep for the specific amount of time that we have mentioned. That is here, especially it is in the milliseconds. So 1000 milliseconds means 1 second. It will go into the sleep state. Then afterwards, it will not directly go into the running state. Where it will go? Yes, it will go into the ready state. Then from ready state, if the thread scheduler is available, then it will go into the running state. The same description was given here. Sleep method is used to sleep a thread of a defined number of milliseconds without using CPU cycles. Since the sleep method raises interrupted exception, this method should be enclosed in try catch block. So that is the reason we have enclosed it in the try catch block. So in the last lecture we have seen the sleep method will be expired and will go into the ready state when it will happen in two cases. One is timer expires, and another is when any interrupted exception was occurred. So that is the reason that is the reason sleep method is throwing the interrupted exception, and it must be caught in the catch block. So that is the reason we are writing the try catch block, just to recall the exception handling. So sleep is a static method available in thread class. So whenever a method is static, we can directly call via class name. But the class thread class is extending. We are extending this counter thread 1 is extending the thread class. So obviously sleep function can be directly called. Otherwise you can also call it as thread.sleep. It don't have any difference. But since we are extending the thread class directly, we are calling the sleep function. So it won't give you the both way of writing one is same. So sleep is a static method available in thread class. The following function calling makes the thread to sleep for 1000 milliseconds. That means 1 second. There are several overloaded signatures available for the sleep. You may follow the Java documentation for more details, or you may refer to the Java to complete reference for more details. So I hope by this time you come to know. This is a thread counter thread 1, which is especially is printing the counter in an incremental order from 0 to 10. So once it prints the first value, then it will go, this particular thread has to sleep for 1000 milliseconds. Then the next iteration takes place. Like that till the 10th iteration, it has to in middle for every iteration it has to sleep for 1000 milliseconds and will go for the next iteration. Here another class was written which is called thread counter thread 2. Previously it is counter thread 1, which is extending the thread class. This particular class is especially written to demonstrate that the thread can also be implemented using runnable interface. The following class shows the implementing thread by implementing runnable interface. So that is class counter thread 2 implements runnable. So why this particular method is why two methods are available for implementing threads? Obviously, in first method, if you extend a thread class, you cannot extend any other class. But here you can implement runnable also. At the same time, you can also extend any other class. So always this is a recommended way of writing the creating the threads. Now the code in the run method will be executed when this thread is started. Runnable interface consists of only one method, that is called public void run. So in Java, when an interface is implemented, one need to define all methods available in it. Otherwise, what will happen? Recall the abstract classes. If any class is implementing an interface, then it must define all methods in it. You might have seen this in the event handling. If any class is implementing action listener or key listener, this kind of event handling methods, so that particular class must define all functions in this. Otherwise, what will happen? The class will become abstract. So that is the reason, since there exists only one method in the runnable interface, that is public void run. So at the same time, the piece of code that should be written in the thread should be written in the public void run. So that is the reason it is better to write. It is you are supposed to define this public void run function here. In the previous class, the run method, the code written in the run method is incrementing counter. Here we have written the decrementing counter in the thread counter thread 2. So for I is equal to 10, I greater than 0, I minus minus, system.out.println counter thread 2 counting plus I. Previous class we have given the sleep method. Here the sleep method was given for around 1000 seconds, 1000 milliseconds, that means 1 second. Now half of the time was mentioned here. Here try thread dot sleep of 500 milliseconds, that means half the time of the first thread. Here sleep method is directly called. The reason is, since we have extended thread class, obviously in thread class itself the sleep function is there. Directly it will be you can directly you can use this particular sleep function here. But here we have not extended any thread class, only you have implemented runnable interface. That is the reason we have to call this static function, which is called sleep function, via thread class. So thread dot sleep of 500. Next, since sleep function will throw the interpreter exception, you must place this statement in the try catch block. So then by ending of the run function and ending of the counter thread 2 class. Next one, we have written a public class. So obviously this is the main class. All the main classes in Java programming should be public. Otherwise the compilation problem we will get. Then public static void main. As counter thread 1 class extending thread class, start method can be directly called on its object. So since thread class, if you read, obviously you have to call the start method that we have seen the state diagram. Counter thread 1 CTO is equal to new counter thread 1. Since counter thread 1 is extending thread class, directly start function can be called system.out.println counter thread 1 priority. So now we can use set priority and get priority to, these are the functions related to the priority. Set priority is to set the priority. Now I want to know what is the priority of the thread. So if any thread is created, what is the priority of the thread? By default priority is 5. That is normal priority. Okay. Any thread is created by default. If any thread is created, its the default priority is normal priority. That is 5. So now I want to print onto the screen what is the priority. Now here counter thread priority plus CTO dot get priority. Now here I have commented CTO dot set priority thread dot norm priority -2. I have commented this. We will see this functionality afterwards. Currently I have commented this. So now you have created the thread 1's object and printed onto the screen what is its priority. Now it has to be started. So to start this, what you are supposed to do? You have to call start function on the thread CTO.start. Next, as counter 2 class is implementing runnable interface, start method can be called by a thread object holding this particular thread instance, because it is this counter thread 2 is implementing runnable interface. So it is not extending thread class. It must be a thread type. That is the reason there is a syntax available in the thread class. So thread class has a overloaded constructor. One is simple thread class. One thread class thread constructor with passing string as the argument. Another is a thread constructor with a runnable interface instance as the argument. So a thread constructor with a runnable interface as the argument. So here thread T is equal to new thread of this is the way how we will create the instance of the thread. To this thread constructor we are passing counter thread 2 instance, that is new counter thread 2. System.out.println counter thread 2 priority plus T dot get priority. So just like how the first thread priority is printed onto the screen, we have given this priority. Now I have commented this T dot set priority. We'll see this afterwards. Then T dot start. So that means thread 2 is going to start. Now what happened? The first thread was started and also second thread was started. So now we'll see how the result will get. So the result look like this. Java thread demo 1 was compiled and it was run. So once if you observe the output, since we started the counter thread 1, then we got this first thing. Counter thread 1 priority is 5. Then counter thread T1 counting is equal to 0. That means initially the counter thread 1 is printing 0, because thread 1 is an incremental counter and thread 2 is a decremental counter. Since after printing for the first iteration it is going into the sleep state. Thread 1 is going into the sleep state. So how much time it will sleep? It will sleep for 1000 seconds. That is it will go for 1000 milliseconds, that means 1 second. So in meanwhile, the scheduler will pick up the second thread because it is in the ready state. So while the scheduler picked up the second thread, the counter thread 2 priority is 5. Counter thread 2 T2, it is starting from 10 because it is a decremental counter. Once it was printed, then it will print, we got the next one, that's counter T2 counting 9, because after printing it has to wait for 500 seconds into the sleep state. So once it is in the 500 seconds sleep state, still 1000 seconds was not completed. Immediately second iteration was also printed here. Okay. Then because 1000 milliseconds means 500 milliseconds. So that reason immediately 2 iterations were printed here of the thread 2. Next 1 iteration of the thread 1 was printed. Next 2 iterations of the thread 2 was printed. Next 1 iteration of the thread 1 was printed. Next 2 iterations of the thread 2 was printed. Next 1 iteration of the thread 1 was printed. Like that the printing was happened. So this is the way when the thread 1 is sleeping, then when the thread 1 is sleeping, immediately thread 2 will be picked up by the handler and will go into the running state. If again sleep function was called on the running thread, then it will go into the sleep state. When the timer expires, it will come back to the ready state. When it comes back to the ready state, the thread 2 when it comes back to the ready state, so there thread 1 is still sleeping because it is in the 1000 milliseconds. Its sleeping time is 1000 milliseconds. That is the reason handler don't have any option. Immediately it will pick the T2 and will go into the running state. So this is the way how the program execution will take place. Now we look at this particular function is having a main method which is called main thread of control, and in which 2 threads were started. That means it is having 1 entry point, but it is having 2 again further sub entry points. So 1 entry point, the thread 1 is to be started, which is another entry point. Thread 2 is to be started, which is another entry point. Now once the thread 1 is completed, you cannot revoke it back because it is going to the dead state. Once the thread 2 is completed, again it will go into the dead state. Thread 2 will also go into the dead state. So here 1 single entry point, then further multiple entry points and multiple exit points. Now what happened here, you look at the first thread is to start with 0 counting, then it has to print up to 9. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 was continuously printed. The reason is here there is by the time thread 1 come to 5, then already thread 2 was finished. That means thread 2 finished before thread 1 because of the sleep time. So even though thread 1 started before thread 2, because of the sleep time, half sleep time than the T1, T2 has executed first, then T1 has executed. So that means the main there is a main thread control, then T1 started, then T2 started parallelly. Okay. So when T1 is in sleeping, T2 is executing. When T2 is is sleeping, then T1 is executing. Then when T1 is in sleeping, then T2 is executing. Like that, when T2 don't have sleeping and T2's code of execution is over, then the thread scheduler understands that there is no further thread to execute except T1. So that reason it picked up T1 always and executed. So thereby T2 ended and T1 also ended. Once T1 and T2 are ended, then main method will also end. So that is the reason the main thread cannot complete or cannot exit unless until all its child thread completes. That means unless until child threads are executed, the main thread cannot be exited. So this is the way how the threading will be managed. Now if you look at within the same specified time or within the specific time, these threads are executed in an overlapped way. That means time overlapping. T1, then T2, then T1, then T2, then T1, T2, just like that, based upon the sleep time. Okay, this is the way how thread priorities, the priorities, thread execution takes place. And one thing you are supposed to observe here is both the threads are having equal priority. So that reason thread scheduler is not giving any difference. That is not giving any difference that okay, this which thread has to be picked up, picked first and picked next. It is purely computing the statements based upon the sleep time and wake up time. Now we'll do some changes in the program and we'll observe the functionality of the program. Now here in the thread 1, 1000 milliseconds sleep was given, and in thread 2 500 milliseconds sleep was given. Now I am making both as 500 milliseconds. So this is the change I have made, and we'll see how the this particular change will reflect the output of the code. So the output will be like this. So as the thread 1 listed first, the counter thread 1 counting 0, it was printed here. Then next thread 2 was started. Since within the 500 milliseconds sleep time, the thread 2 was started. And here, since thread 2 is the decrementing counter, here 10 we got here. Next thread 1 counting 1, thread 2 9, thread 1 2, thread 2 8, because both the threads are having equal sleeping time. So first T1 T2, T1 T2, T1 T2, T1 T2, like that till and in a proper way. T1 afterward T1 was slept for 500 milliseconds. Then in the time T2 was executed. T2 was slept for 500 milliseconds. Then within the time T1 was invoked. So this is the way how in a zigzag manner, since because of the equal sleeping times, we got this particular thing. In the same program we will do some more modifications. That is, here already I have made a comment of the setting of the priority in the main method. Here the first thread is priority was decremented by 2, and the second thread priority was incremented by 2. So basically, what is the default priority of any thread to be which is created? That is 5, which is called normal priority. So what I am doing here is in the first thread dot norm priority minus 2. That means this CTO first thread priority will become 3, and the second thread priority will become 8. Since both are having the same sleep time, so there is no difference, because when both the threads are having default priority, that is 5, perfect zigzag we have observed in the output. That is first T1 is invoked, then T2, then T1 T2 T2 T1 T2, like that it was invoked. Now we'll see by changing the priority of the threads. So I have already removed the comments, and the priority was set to 3 for the first thread, priority was set to 8 for the second thread. So we'll see what could be the output that we will get. So the output what we got is also a perfect zigzag like previously. Counter thread, first thread 1 was started, then thread 2 was started, then thread 1, thread 2, thread 1, thread 2, thread 1, thread 2, like that. So the setting of the priority does not have any impact, because both are even though they have different priorities, because of the sleep time, the thread scheduler is picking up the next thread to execute and is executing. Now your task is create one more thread. That means create one more instance of the first thread, Now you set the priority to 8. That means you are supposed to create one more thread class here, counter thread 2, that is counter thread 2. You create one more instance and set the priority to 8. That means one thread is having the priority 3, another two threads are having the priority 8. Now observe the one thread 2, thread 3 is both are having equal sleeping times. So when equal sleeping times are there, so but two threads are having the higher priorities, that is are having equal priority, and one thread is having the lower priority, but all the threads are having equal sleeping time. Then what could be the output? Whether T1, T2, T3 will be printed, or T1, T2, T3, then T1, T2, T3, like that it will be printed, or any other zigzag manner you will get. You are supposed to these statements must be written in the code, and this is your exercise to do this. So the exercise is create one more thread of second thread, that is counter thread 2. Create one more instance, just like thread T is equal to new thread, like that thread T1 is equal to new thread of new counter thread 2. Then T1 dot set priority thread dot non priority plus 3. That means two threads are having equal priority, one thread is having lower priority, but both the threads are having same sleep time. Then you observe what is the output. If the output if you might have observed, then write on your own. Our next case is the first case is with different time sleep intervals. Here in the output also given T1 and T2 having the different time intervals, sleep time intervals, and next one is with the equal sleep time intervals with the different priorities but equal time intervals. Next we will see another case by without allowing any sleep time. So for that I am giving this thread dot sleep function and both the try catch block in the big comments. So here I am placing here the multi-line comment. Just I am placing in comment so that this will not function when compilation was happened. Then the same thing we will do for the first thread also, and we will try to observe the result. So immediately you got the output. There is no difference. There is no time gap in printing the outputs. All of a sudden you got the output like this. So if you observe the output, first thread 1 was started, then T1 counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Then T1 up to 10 it was printed. Then in middle somewhere thread 2 was all of a sudden it was started. Then T1 counting was printed, T1 counting was printed, T7 was printed. This T2 was started here 10. Then somewhere in middle you got T1, and rest you got T2s. So look at the output is quite unpredictable here. So the reason is when multiple threads are running in the system, to view the output at least some time gap must be maintained, so that you can see accurately that how the threads are calling and how threads are printing the given commands or printing the given statements. That kind of things you can visualize clearly when there is a time gap. In other words, it is just like how you can a human eye cannot see high flickering light frequency. So there should be some gap, so that it is just like your decoration bulbs, the blinking of the bulb. That means if there is a time gap in on and off, between on and off, then only human eye can recognize. In the same way here also, if there is some time gap between this printing, that is when you make the thread to sleep, then only you can see this particular thread execution correctly. So far the CPU is executing the Java program, and the JVM is handling this particular Java program. Obviously JVM will sit on top of the operating system and always request the resources from the operating system, and obviously operating system is sending the CPU, and CPU will take the commands and will execute. Now what we'll do is we'll open some more applications which are not required. Actually some applications will open, and then we'll rerun this program, and we'll observe the output, how the current output and the output with a more number of applications opened parallelly. So we'll see the difference between the output of CPU with few applications running and CPU with many applications running. So for this I have opened 2 MS Word applications and 3 different Notepad applications, and 1 CalC application I will open, 1 calculator application, and I will rerun this code. I will rerun the program, and we'll see the output. What will be the output? So here this is the output that is without with more applications opened. So with more applications opened, this is the output. So let us observe small. Is there any difference? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Previously here also 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Next priority 5, and here also we got priority 5. Next 5, 6, 7, 10, 8, 9, 9, 8. 5, 6, 7, 10, 8, 9, 8, 7. Here there is no 9, 9, 8, 9, 9. Here we got 8, 9, 9. And here 8, 9, 8. And 9 we got here. So slight difference is there in the outputs. So why this slight difference is there? Since the CPU has to pay attention to some other applications which are already open, which are opened recently. So the reason in thread scheduling, in thread execution, some difference is there. If more applications were opened like this, obviously there will be more difference in the output that you can see. So this is the way. That means the thread execution will always depending upon any parallel applications running in the system or not. That means if more number of applications are running, obviously OS and CPU has to accommodate those applications also. That is the reason the resources that are allocated for the thread to execute and perform scheduling for the threads will be having some difference. So the reason thread execution without other applications will be different from the thread execution with some more applications which are running parallelly with the thread application. So that difference you can observe in this. Anyhow, with this I'm also giving you one more example. You also practice that example in these 4 contexts. That is, first one is with the same sleep time, and with different sleep times, with the same sleep time, with the different priorities, and without sleep time, and without sleep time with more applications opened. Like that, I have given one more question. In the same program, create another instance of the second thread and set 8 as the priority. Now rerun the program and observe the output and write your comments. So these are the tasks you are supposed to do for this after this particular lecture, and do this on your own and see how the things are how the threads are executing, so that you can realize how these particular threads will play a concurrent execution. I am giving you this program for your study. You perform the cases that I have done on the previous program, and observe the each and every line. Anyhow I have given the comment for each and every line, and rerun this code with the different cases that I have shown in the current lecture, so that you can understand how this particular threading is going to be executed. So in the next lecture we'll see regarding the synchronization, how thread synchronization will be maintained, and how threads will enter into the monitor states, such as by calling wait, notify and notify all, and how proper synchronization will be maintained, and how the locks will be maintained, and what may that is we'll also see the concept of deadlock. These are the concepts which are left over in our Java programming. However, the multi-threading in Java programming is a very vast aspect, but I am trying to cover all the aspects in one or two programs, so that it will be easy for you to write your own programs in Java. So this is for the today's lecture, and we'll see rest of the things in the next lecture.